Pekin Community High School District 303 Board of Education regular meeting is now in session. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item of business on the agenda tonight will be the public hearing on the 2015-2016 district budget. This is the point in the process where we seek and accept public input. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to address that subject?
Anyone? Anyone?
Hearing no one, I'll declare that hearing closed. We'll move on. I'll ask Mr. White to call the roll, please.
Allison Reed.
Here.
Vera.
Here.
Hill.
Here.
Hoheimer. Huey.
Here.
Ridley.
Here.
Howard.
Here. We do have the required quorum, and we will continue with board business. Next item being the approval of minutes. Those minutes being the Student Achievement Committee meeting of May the 20th, the Operations and Maintenance Committee meeting of August the 24th, the regular board meeting of August the 24th, and the closed session of the regular board meeting of August the 24th. Do we have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hill, second by Mrs. Hoheimer, to approve the minutes as presented. Are there questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, Mr. White, would you call the roll, please?
Hill.
Aye.
Hoheimer.
Aye.
Allison Reed.
Aye.
Vera.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Ridley.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye. Motion carries. Minutes stand approved as presented. Next item on the agenda is communications, public comments, and participation. As is our tradition, we'll begin with board applause. And considering that I was kind of mean to Mr. Bear last month, I'll let him go first.
This might seem insignificant, the reason why this happened, but I had a technical issue with my school email, and the IT staff was very quick to respond and fix it within an hour. So I would like to give kudos to the IT department for coming through and helping me, which in turn helped Mr. White.
Mr. Bear, I think that's a great board applause because it's only a problem when it's a problem. And it's rarely a problem, but boy, when it is, it's a doozy. So, very good. Mr. Alessandrini.
Congratulations to last year's Pekinian staff. The yearbooks from last year are out. It looks very nice.
Thank you, Mr. Alessandrini. Mrs. Hoheimer.
My board applause goes to Tim Bonnet because he met me up here on a Sunday afternoon to look for my niece's phone, and we found it, and I really appreciate him taking time out of his Sunday afternoon to do that. It was very much appreciated. He went above and beyond.
Thank you, Mrs. Hoheimer. Well said. How about you, Mr. Hill?
Yeah, for my board applause this month, I'm going to, I guess, make a plug for Volley for the Cure, because it's not happening until October 13th. But Pekin Community High School and Wharton volleyball teams, I think for the third year in a row, are going to team up for Volley for the Cure. That's going to be in the Hawkins Gym starting at 4:30 to 8 o'clock, and all to help raise money for Susan G. Komen Foundation, the local chapter. So it's gonna be money going back to support local efforts with that foundation. So it's a great cause, and I ask anybody that's available to attend it.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Well said. How about you, Mr. Wrigley?
Nothing for me this month.
Okay, that's okay too. How about Mr. Huey?
Well, my kudos and board applause go to Miss Ashley Sharp, a math teacher here at Pekin High, and Mr. Greg Reese, who teaches in the CTE department, for their co-teaching of the Algebra Tech class. The rumors are out that the students are very enthusiastic and really enjoying this course. Something we've worked a number of years to put into place, and it sounds like these individuals have done it well and having a lot of success.
Knowing the personalities of those involved, that's Very understandable. Thank you, Mr. Huey. One of the disadvantages of going last is people steal your board applause. I won't mention any names, but I've got show and tell, and I've got reasons. I want to applaud this yearbook. This is the 20th yearbook that I have seen, and 3 things about it that stand out in my mind are, number 1, I've never seen a yearbook with so much color in it. It's a virtual rainbow of color. And to be more specific about the color, I love the photographs in there, Mrs. Brucker-Smith, where you have black and white married together in the same picture. I just think that is really neat. I've never seen that before. But the thing that I like the best about this yearbook, it shows on the front and it shows all the way throughout this yearbook. Together, we are one. There are many, many times in this district when we kind of lose sight of that. And I think we all need to stop and take a breath once in a while and remember that we all are one. Whether it's in the classroom with students or on the athletic field competing, or even in negotiation sessions with board and the Alliance. When all is said and done, together we are one. So Mrs. Brucker-Smith, would you pass on to anybody who's still around here who had a role in this yearbook that this Board of Education really liked your yearbook?
Yes.
And that's not to demean the ones that came ahead of them, because there was a pretty high standard there, but I think you just raised it. Thank you very much. Next item, just to see if all of you are paying attention. Sarah McKenzie can't be here tonight. And we have a nice young man named Nathaniel Prather. And by process of elimination, we figured out who you are. Come on out, Nathaniel.
Thank you for that. As you said, Sarah can't be here tonight. She has a golf match in Limestone. But to introduce myself, I'm Nathaniel Prather. I'm the treasurer for Student Council. So our vice president's also at golf, and so we kind of just ran down the line to me. So anyway, basically our update is that last Saturday we had our blackout game, and we raised $13,660 for Easter seals. It was the best year since I've been in high school.
Say that again.
$13,660 for the kids of Easter seals, and that's the highest number since I've been in high school. And I believe that it's the second highest number, only behind what happened my 8th grade year, so a few years back. We got to have the Easter Seals kids come in for an assembly during advisory the Friday before. That really pumped up the students, as I would say. It really motivated them to give more to this charity. And then the kids got to come to the game and sit down almost courtside, but on the field. And they got to run out of the Dragon with the football team, which was very exciting for all of them. But that was great. We're looking forward to doing even better next year. Upcoming this year, on October 10th, we have our homecoming dance, and our theme is Back to the Future, because in those movies, if you've ever seen them, Marty McFly comes back in 2015. So it's we were kind of trying to do some planning for that. So we're all very excited for that. Our Spirit Week that leading up to it is going to be themed by different, back to a certain time of the day. So that's my report. Do you have any questions?
Nathaniel, I think you gave a great report, and you just underscored the fact that you have a great exec board. To go down through and get to you and give a report like that says something about your exec board. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
At this point in the process, I'll say it again. If there's anyone who is in the audience tonight that would like to address this board on a matter that's not an agenda item, now is the time to do it. I'm kind of obligated to say that, even though hearing none. we'll move on to the next item, which is approval of claims.
Mr. President, I move for the payment of monthly warrants in the amount of $1,932,098.59 per summary information found on page 44 and detailed information found on starting on page 73.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Alcine. That was Mr. Wrigley?
It was.
Motion by Mr. Alessandrini, second by Mr. Wrigley, to pay the monthly warrants as presented. Are there questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, Mr. White, would you call the roll, please?
Allison Greeny.
Aye.
Wrigley.
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Hohlheimer.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye. Motion carries. Monthly warrants will be paid. In addition, you'll find bank balances, district investments, and the medical care report as of August 31st on pages 46, 47, and 48. Next item on the agenda, we have a request for closed session regarding the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. Also, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. Also, the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired. Also, the setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the public body, and student disciplinary cases, and litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting. Do we have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hohlheimer. Is that you, Mr. Alessandrini? Motion by Mrs. Hohlheimer, second by Mr. Alessandrini. Mr. White, would you call the roll, please?
Hohlheimer.
Aye.
Allison Greeny.
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Wrigley.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye. Motion carries. At the end of the closed session, the board will reconvene and continue on with board business. Let the record indicate the board is back in open session at 8:51 p.m. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Before I call for a vote on the consent agenda, is there a separate item that a board member would like to pull out for an individual vote? And if so, speak up now. None need to be pulled out at this point. I won't go into detail on the items in the consent agenda because that defeats the purpose of the consent agenda. But I do want to point out the last item, which is always nice, is a donation from the Pekin Concert Association Incorporated, a donation of $4,724.92 to the Norma Yack Music Scholarship Fund. At this point, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Thank you, Mrs. Hohlheimer. Do we have a second?
Second.
That's Mr. Wrigley? Thank you, Mr. Wrigley. Motion by Mrs. Hohlheimer, second by Mr. Wrigley to approve the consent agenda as presented. Mr. White, would you call the roll, please?
Hohlheimer.
Aye.
Wrigley.
Aye.
Allison Greeny.
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Huey.
Yes.
Howard.
Aye. Motion carries. Consent agenda approved as presented. Next item, resolution for the sale of the 2014-2015 building trades house. Dr. Owens.
As far as we know, everything is set. The closing is set for September 30th, this Wednesday, for the house, building trades house. So I'm just recommending or asking for board approval to adopt the resolution for the sale of lot 142 in Deerfield Estates, Section 6A subdivision, Tazewell County, Illinois, commonly known as 1832 Whitetail Lane, Pekin, Illinois 61554, in the amount of $213,000 as presented.
Thank you,
Motion for
Dr.
approval.
Owens. Thank you, Mr. Alessandrini. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mrs. Holheimer. She beat you, I'm sorry. She's quick, Mr. Huey. There are nights when I'm glad she is. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Alessandrini and a second by Mrs. Holheimer for the sale of the building trades house as presented. Questions, comments, or discussion? Mr. White, would you call the roll, please?
Allison Reedy.
Aye.
Holheimer.
Aye.
Vera.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Wrigley.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye. Motion carries. Building trades house sold. Good job, Dr. Owens. Thank you. Next item, Director of Building and Grounds, Dr. Owens again.
As job descriptions have changed, we are coming forth to you with a different salary for the Director of Buildings and Grounds, and we are recommending board approval to set the salary of Tim Bonnet as Director of Buildings and Grounds at $66,752.83, effective October 1st, 2015.
Thank you, Dr. Owens. Do we have a motion to that effect?
Motion for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Wrigley. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Huey. Motion by Mr. Wrigley, second by Mr. Huey, to approve the Director of Building and Grounds as presented. Questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, Mr. White, would you call the roll, please?
Wrigley.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Allison Reedy.
Aye.
Vera.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Holheimer.
Present.
Howard.
Aye. Motion carries. Director of Buildings and Grounds approved as presented. Next item, Supervisor of Building and Grounds. Again, Dr. Owens.
Along the same lines, the Supervisor of Buildings and Grounds is the position that was the maintenance supervisor, and the job description has been reworked, so we are recommending board approval to set the salary of Clint Rui as Supervisor of Buildings and Grounds at $59,272, effective October 1st, 2015.
Thank you, Dr. Owens. I'd be looking for a motion to that effect.
So move.
Thank you, Mr. Huey. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wrigley. Motion by Mr. Huey, second by Mr. Wrigley, to recommend board approval for the Supervisor of Building and Grounds as presented. Are there questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, Mr. White, would you call the roll, please?
Huey.
Aye.
Wrigley.
Aye.
Allison Reedy.
Aye.
Vera.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Holheimer.
Present.
Howard.
Aye. Motion carries. Supervisor of Building and Grounds approved as presented. I kind of noticed Mrs. Schaefer's got a little twinkle in her eye over there because she's seeing all these Dr. Owens ones. Next item is the Illinois High School District Organization dues for 2015-2016, and again, it's Dr. Owens.
As many of you know, for several years now, Pekin High has belonged to the Illinois High School District Organization, which is a district or an organization of just high school districts in the state of Illinois. They have their own lobbyist who lobbies on our behalf when things come up that have to do with high schools specifically. And so it would, I'm asking for board approval to again pay our district organization dues, which this year amount at $948.40 for our dues for the 15-16 school year.
Thank you, Dr. Owens. I'd be looking for a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Barra. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Holheimer. Motion by Mr. Barra, second by Mrs. Holheimer to recommend paying the high school district organization dues as presented. Dr. Owens, am I remembering correctly? Isn't that this is a relatively young organization, and weren't we in on the ground floor of its formation, or am I just imagining that?
I know the exact history. I know Paula was always a member of that.
Was not.
I'm thinking that's.
Yeah, us old guys, we know things like that.
Yeah.
It's just remembering them is the problem.
Thursday, so I'll go.
Membership's still about 102, is that roughly?
That, yeah,
In terms of the number of people, I can ask again.
Number of districts? well, us old fellas, we like it when we remember.
Yeah.
Questions, comments, or discussion?
It started with Ken Schwab, he was on the organizing committee.
Okay. See, he remembers better than I do. He's younger.
Well, it was originally formed because of the School Board Association taking a financial position that was deemed unattractive to high school organizations.
And wasn't it around the subject of waiting? Because they used to wait.
And that's the reason why the organization.
They took waiting away and we lost money in the deal.
That's when it formed.
Hot
I'll
diggity.
come back.
Hot diggity, it's coming back.
Well, I appreciate the background. I
Yeah.
have that.
Hey, you know what? There's never such a thing as too much information,
That's right.
especially when you have to make decisions.
There might be at 9 o'clock. I'm not
Oh, yeah, we're getting close to the hour. Any other questions or comments? Oh, Mr. White, my good friend, would you call the roll, please?
Vera,
Aye.
Holheimer,
Aye.
Allison Greenie.
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Huey,
Aye.
Wrigley.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye. Motion carries. Those dues are paid. Next item, memorandum of understanding between the Tazewell County Health Department and Pekin Community High School. Again, Dr. Owens.
We have a memorandum of understanding, and we have had for several years with the Tazewell County Health Department, that we are a point of dispensing site in case of a public health emergency. Pekin High would serve as a dispensary of some sort. So we are bringing that before you, obviously, with updated contact numbers and updated district personnel and who the contact people are. So for board approval. In addition to this, they would also like to run a couple emergency drills, in scenarios, and that will be done hopefully in the spring, during spring break time when there aren't students here, as well as once school is out, so that we can do that here, which we've done that in the past in our building as well. So I recommend board approval for the memorandum of understanding between the Tazewell County Health Department and the Pekin Community High School District 303 Board of Education as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Owens. I'd be looking for a motion to that effect. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is that Mr. Bear? Motion by Mr. Hill, second by Mr. Bear, to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Tazewell County Health Department and PCHS. Questions, comments, or discussion? Nothing new here, just updating an ongoing practice.
Right.
Mr. White, would you call the roll, please?
Bill,
Aye.
Vera,
Aye.
Allison Greenie.
Aye.
Holheimer,
Aye.
Huey,
Aye.
Wrigley,
Aye.
Howard.
Aye. Motion carries. Memorandum approved as presented. Next item, 2015-2016 application for recognition of public schools. Again, Dr. Owens.
This is an application that schools are required to do. It's actually due in a couple days on September 30th for recognition of public schools. You can see on page 201 some of the questions that we have to answer. Just be aware that this will be one where we will have to answer that we currently do not offer mandatory daily PE. That is something we'll have to mark no of, and we know that. The regional office knows that as well, but that goes on. That application for recognition of public schools, which is due this Wednesday, so I'm recommending board approval to submit that 15-16 application as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Owens. I'd be looking for a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Wrigley. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Allison Greenie. Motion by Mr. Wrigley, second by Mr. Allison Greenie to approve the application for recognition of public schools. Questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, Mr. White, are you ready?
Wrigley,
Aye.
Allison Greenie.
Aye.
Vera,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Holheimer,
Aye.
Huey,
Yes.
Howard.
Aye. Motion carries. Thankfully, we'll get recognized. Next item. Request for approval of Health Life Safety Amendment number 17. Again, Dr. Owens.
We're busy at it again. We have another health life life safety amendment. If you remember that this upcoming summer is when we are slated to do domestic and sewer piping in the gym. That sewer piping obviously has already been designated with health life safety funds, and we are wanting to submit for our domestic piping to also hopefully be included in health life safety. We've done water samples and gathered data, and we're ready to resubmit that. That's about over $600,000 worth of work that we'd like to submit for that amendment. So I'm asking for board approval to submit that amendment number 17 as presented.
Motion for approval?
Thank you, Mr. Alessandrini.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Motion by Mr. Alessandrini, second by Mr. Hill for board approval of the Health Life Safety Amendment number 17 as presented. Questions, comments, or discussion? Mr. White, would you call the roll, please?
Alessandrini.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Vera.
Aye.
Hohenheimer.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Wrigley.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye. Motion carries. Now let's hope we have a little bit of good luck with this one. Next item, we're going to change faces. Your patience is paying off.
Yes.
Tentative 2015-2016 district budget, Carla Schaefer.
Well, I know it's late, so it's only gonna be about a 30-minute presentation. Honestly, I don't have a whole lot to report. I didn't have any questions over the 30-day public display of the budget. You do have a revised cash sheet in front of you. Overall, there were a few minor changes. I think overall it changed only about $50,000, unfortunately to the worse. But the majority of that was in the education fund. A couple things. After our presentation, I did, a couple weeks later, the Department of Revenue did release the estimates for corporate personal property replacement tax. And that was about $46,000 less than what I had budgeted, so I adjusted for that. The other thing, Danielle and I met with Mr. Steger to discuss Skills USA. That was not in the budget at the time of the presentation. We did include that in this budget, but we will be coming to you next month with a presentation for that program. But we went ahead and included it just in, so it would be in the budget if approved next month. That was a little under $10,000. So those are probably just the two notable things. Other than that, there really wasn't anything major. So I would ask tonight for your board approval of the tentative 2015-2016 district budget as presented.
Motion for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Wrigley. Second by Mrs. Hohenheimer. Motion by Mr. Wrigley, second by Mrs. Hohenheimer to approve the tentative district budget for 2015-2016 as presented. Questions, comments, or discussion? Given the financial climate in this state, I think it's pretty nice that it only changed that little bit that it did.
Yeah, I hope it's close though. That's
I haven't quite figured out, Mrs. Schaefer, if you're able to smile and hold your breath at the same time.
not very well.
I didn't think so.
No.
Any questions or comments? Mr. White, would you call the roll, please?
Wrigley.
Aye.
Hohenheimer.
Aye.
Alessandrini.
Aye.
Vera.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye. Motion carries. Tentative budget approved as presented. Next item, administrator and teacher salary and benefits report for 2014-2015. Again, Mrs. Schaefer.
On page 206 of your materials, there is the listing of the administrator and teacher salary and benefits report. We had to start doing this in 2012 when the law changed, and so this is something then, once the board approves, we post on our website for public display as well. So the recommendation would be board approval of Pekin Community High School District 303's administrator and teacher salary and benefits report for 2014-15 as presented.
So,
Thank you, Mrs. Schaefer, and thank you, Mrs. Hohenheimer. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Barra. Motion by Mrs. Hohenheimer, second by Mr. Barra to approve the 303 administrator and teacher salary and benefits report as presented. Questions, comments, or discussion? Mr. White, would you call the roll, please?
Hohenheimer.
aye.
Vera.
Aye.
Alessandrini.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Wrigley.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye, motion carries. Approved as presented. We move on to reports and we begin with resignations. Mrs. Hohenheimer.
Yes, I've got 4 resignations to report. I've got Bailey Gambetti, Key Club Advisor, effective September 3rd of 2015. Sarah Rui, Secretary to the AD and Driver's Education Department, effective October 17th. And Nate Smith, a personal assistant for the Special Ed Department, effective September 30th, 2015. And Frankie Van Etten, Student Supervisor, effective September 30th, 2015.
Thank you, Mrs. Holheimer. Moving on, we have Policy Committee, Mr. Wrigley.
The policy committee met this evening in the superintendent's office and will be bringing a number of policies for board review at the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Wrigley. Nice job. How about Operations and Maintenance, Mr. Alessandrini?
We did not meet because the policy committee met, so hopefully we'll get their slot next month.
Sounds like a plan to me. How about Labor Management Relations Committee, Dr. Owens?
We have not met, and this week's meeting that was set for Thursday has actually been canceled due to no agenda items as well.
How about Student Achievement, Dr. Owens?
We did meet, I believe, last week, and started the discussion. Obviously, for the past 2 years, Student Achievement's focus has been around 7-period day and the details of that. We had decided at the end of last year, because we are on the road to a 7-period day, that there would have to be a look at what graduation requirements would be and how that will change, if anything, our graduation requirements, number of credits needed to graduate, and those things. So that committee is charged with that work this year, hopefully to come to a consensus as to what that should look like by November, so we can bring forward a proposal to the board in December for approval, because obviously that has to then be planned for and instituted when we schedule students starting in January. So that committee is charged with that. So we did some background work as to what our credits are right now and how that looks at Pekin High and how that has been figured in the past, and the questions that we now have to answer moving into a potential 7-period day. So that's what we covered in SAC last week.
Thank you, Dr. Owens. I know that a sizable group of people have put their hearts and their souls and their blood and their sweat and their tears into this discussion. And I don't want it to take place without them knowing that the board is very grateful, because ultimately we're going to end up somewhere, and if we do end up somewhere, it's going to be because of their hard work and effort. So I say thank you to all those involved. How about the next one, FOIA requests?
We did have one FOIA request this month, and that was a FOIA asking for any purchase orders from March 5th, 2015 to current. So that was fulfilled and sent on, and I have no idea why, but that's what the FOIA request was for.
Sooner or later, you may find out.
Maybe. I don't know if I want to know. But.
Yeah, really. How about the next one, 6-day enrollment?
As you know, every year at the 6th day, we do an enrollment count to get a judge of where we stand. We feel like the dust typically settles by that time. And so you can see on page 211 that our enrollment at this time is 1,996 students, which is really very, very similar to last year, within a couple of students just right underneath that 2,000 mark.
Thank you, Dr. Owens. Next item is future agenda items. If there's an item that a board member would like to see on a future agenda, speak now or hold your peace. Got some peace holding going on. Next item, announcements by the president. I just have a reminder for you, the ISB Central Illinois Valley Division Fall Dinner Meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, the 7th of October at Tremont High School. Registration begins at 5:30. Dinner at 6 and a business meeting at 6:45. Copies and brochures are available online. Please let Mr. White know if you plan to attend. And Joe, is this the awards one? Is this the one?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the one where they recognize master board members and leadership conferences and various things that people got involved in.
That is correct.
That's always kind of a nice thing. So if you're going, make sure you let Mr. White know, please. I need to point out to you that this coming week is homecoming. As Nathaniel mentioned earlier, the theme is Back to the Future, which I really like, and I'm sure that Joe loves. Monday through Friday is Spirit Week. I don't want to jinx you, Joe, but I'm hoping to.
Wow.
Powder Puff game is Thursday at 6:30. The class game is Thursday at 7:30. The parade, for those of us that are going to ride in the parade, make sure you show up at James Field. I think it's a little before 5, isn't it? You show up.
5:30. The parade starts at 5:30, I believe.
Yeah. And then football game will be Washington versus Pekin Friday in the stadium. And then there'll be a dance Saturday from 7 to 10 in the cafeteria. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for Monday, the 26th of October, in this boardroom at 6:30, but we're not done yet because I do have a request for closed session regarding the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. I'd be seeking a motion for closed session. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Do I have a second? Mr. Wrigley. Thank you, Mr. Wrigley. Mr. White, would you call the roll, please?
Hill. Aye. Ridgely.
Aye.
Allison Greenie.
Aye.
Farah.
Aye.
Holheimer.
Hi.
Huey.
Aye.
Howard.
Let me point out two things before we leave.
Say hi.
If you approve the closed session.
Oh, I'm sorry, bye. She sidetracked me with something very important, and I'm grateful she did. Motion carries, we will go into closed session. I need to point out that at the conclusion of that closed session, there will be no further board business conducted, so for all intents and purposes, this board is adjourned. But the thing that she was so nice to point out to me is we all have to sign this thing about the hearing with regard to the budget, and I would have totally forgotten it. So thank you, Mrs. Holheimer. You can sign first. Thank all of you for a long and difficult evening, and that means everybody in this room, especially Mrs. Smith, with the patience of Job. Thank